Okay, good afternoon. My name is Liliana Rodriguez. Today is August 17th, 2010, and I am in Tucson, Arizona, interviewing Mr. John Soltero for the Voces Oral History Project. Mr. Soltero, we're going to start this interview talking, if you can take us way back to your childhood, where you were born, and if you can talk to us about your parents, where they're from, and how it was growing up.
Yeah, I was born in Globe, Arizona, June the 24th, 1924. Globe, Arizona was, is a mining town, and I went to school there till the war started. Then I went to Phoenix to work with the Southwest Airways. I went to Phoenix when I was 17 years old because I needed a good job to support the rest of the family, because my dad had taken off. He took off for California, and then he took off for Mexico because my mother would not join him going back to Mexico. So she said, no, I want to stay in the United States with my children. And about that time, when I was working with the Southwest Airways, I met a lot of good friends, and when I got in there, I had $5 in my pocket, and I figured if I paid $3 for a hotel room, a motel room, then I would only have $2 to eat on. But anyway, things were real hard at home, and I didn't want to take any more than $5 when I hitchhiked to Phoenix. But the people were real nice at that time. They weren't like they are today. I started knocking on doors, see if somebody could put me up for the night. The first home I went to, the lady came out and said, I can fix something up in the front porch for you. And I said, well, look, I might be back. I went to the second house, and they said, I think we can fix something up in my husband's workshop in the back, because he has a chair there, and I've caught him sleeping. And so I said I might be back. The third home that I knocked, when I knocked on the door, the lady came out and said, my two sons just went into the Army. I'd love to have you here because I live alone. And she says, take your pick of the 2 bedrooms. And she asked me if I had supper. I said, no. So she made me some supper. And in talking, I said, I'd like to contribute something if I'm going to be staying here. And she started figuring out and writing. And then she says, okay, how about $7 a week, board and room? I must have made some kind of gesture, because she says, well, okay, make it $6. $6 a week, board and room. And she says, you can stay here as long as you want. Well, I worked at the base, the Southwest Airways, and I worked with a group of kids who were mostly Japanese and Russian, and they were real nice to me, and I made some real good friends, and they knew that I lived in Globe. So after I got a job, I brought my little car down. It was a little Model A, 1929. I paid $25 for it, and it had new tires, and it was well kept. So every week on Friday, they'd all come down and give me sacks full of rabbits, gunny sacks, chickens, and all. And then this Japanese boy says, here, take these flowers to your mother. And anyway, so, excuse me, we stayed there. I stayed there working, and but everybody was going into the service. And I thought, well, why not me? You know, so I went down there and told them I wanted to come in the service. And they wanted to put me in the infantry. I said, no, I don't want the infantry. They said, okay, we'll put you in artillery. I don't want the artillery. I want to work on airplanes. Well, they said, it's not what you want, it's what we need, what we want. I said, well, you better put the handcuffs on me because I'm going home. If I can't work on airplanes, I'm leaving. You can't leave. I said, watch me. But anyway, he kind of cuffed me across the face. Tough guy, you know. I said, be careful. I said, don't do that. But at that time, they could cuff you across the head or whatever and get away with it. Not like today. But he says, okay, you want something that we might need you as an aerial gunner, as an engineer gunner. I said, well, that'd be fine for me. But anyway, I ended up in about a couple of months. They cut me short on my basic training. I ended up in England as an aerial gunner on the B-17s bombing Germany. Well, yes, I was scared and all, but I couldn't show it because there were some kids were not able to take that kind of assignment, so they would quit, and they'd put them in the kitchen washing pots and pans, see if they would change their mind, and some did, some didn't. Of course, there was we were losing quite a few airplanes at that time, and the worst thing that the thing that really stayed in my mind was one day at briefing. Well, we'd gone out to bomb Munich, places like that, Bremen. This one day they walked in and they says, "Okay, we've been ordered to pulverize Berlin." And I said, "Oh, my God, this is going to be a hard assignment." And of course, when we went into briefing, everybody was kind of talking to one another and all. When they said we were going to pulverize Berlin, you could hear, a hair floating through the air, you know. And so everybody just quieted down. We didn't have a thing to say. So there we go, Berlin. And I saw 20 airplanes go down in that mission. I'm talking about 20 airplanes with 10 people in each airplane. And my airplane got hit, and the engine was burning, and the bell rang for us to bail out. Well, I was smart enough to know that if I bailed out after Berlin had been bombed all day, that if I jumped out over the city, they were going to chop me up like hamburger. And I said, "Don't you dare jump, you guys. Don't dare jump. If they want to jump, let them jump, but let's stay on the airplane." "Yeah, we'll stay with you. We'll fly the airplane out of here till we get out in the outskirts." Well, we went into the Baltic Sea, and then the pilot made a comment to go to Sweden and be interned for the duration because they were neutral. It was a neutral country. And I said, "Make a left turn," right before we got to Sweden. "Make a left turn." He said, "Now what? What do you want now?" I said, let's go home." And we were able to make it back to England. And in the North Sea, I saw at least 24 airplanes in the water, and the young kids getting out in their life rafts, and the lifeboats coming in from Germany or England to see who picked them up first. That was one of my biggest experiences. And then when we went to the base, these old English guys says, "My God, you little so-and-sos," explicit words, "you little so-and-sos, you gotta be crazy. You act like you just went into a ball game or something," because we had barely made it back, to the base. And we were kidding around and playing around because we were happy that we made it, you know, and not have to bail out and not have to go to Sweden. We came back to England. Yeah. The other thing that been very, that I've never forgotten is on D-Day when we went into France. On D-Day, that was June the 6th of 44. We went and bombed the coast because they said our boys are getting beat up on landing. And he said, come back and get another load. So we came back to get another load. He said, you got to get off of the ground by 2 o'clock. So we did. We made it off the ground by 2 o'clock, but not after I had busted my back. My partner slipped and I slipped back and I hit the trailer. The beams on a trailer about 6 inches in diameter, and I still have my busted back. It still hurts all the way down my left leg since 44. I mean bad. Today, I'm barely making it. It hurts so bad I can't walk, not even half a block. But anyway, we got back and we bombed the coast again because they were having a hard time. Why didn't the United States Air Force, Army Air Corps, why didn't they bomb the area, saturate the area real good? I know they were behind the walls, in the holes and everything, waiting, you know, but at least, by golly, we could have got some troops in there. But they say, well, we didn't want to give our landing areas, we didn't want to let them know where we're going to land. I said, well, you know, you bombed the whole thing. They couldn't say we're going to land in all of France, but we did. That day, paratroopers, and I looked out my window, and my God, from one side, looking one way to the east, one to the horizon, to the end, was full of ships. The other way, full of ships. And they were all converging into France. And those two targets that I never forgot. Of course, we had every time we went up into Germany, we caught heck, you know, we caught hell going in there and back out. And I didn't expect to come out of it alive because the odds were against us. Bombing in the daytime, the British said, you people can't bomb in the daytime, but we thought we could do the job quicker because we could see the targets and everything. The British only flew by themselves. As soon as it started getting dark, you could hear them going out at night in the dark. We went out in the daytime where everybody could see us, and so we had more of a dangerous situation. Yeah. Then
How old were you when you enlisted?
19.
19. So all of these experiences, you were like in your early 20s?
Yeah, and the whole crew we're all young.
Oh, yeah.
We're all young kids, to the extent that when we picked up our airplane here in Pennsylvania, we picked up our airplane and we took off. We landed in
Azores?
huh?
The Azores?
No, honey, that's way over here.
We landed in the Azores.
Anyway, we ended at Bangor, Maine. And then from there, we took off and landed in Iceland. In Iceland, it was so cold that we couldn't get the airplane to fire up. And the hydraulic fluid was draining out of the hydraulic system, brakes and all. The gasoline, the tanks are made out of neoprene, like rubber. They were leaking because they were so cold, they just turned out to be just like metal against metal. They got so hard, and we stayed there a couple of weeks. They had given us up for lost on our way over. They didn't know we were still there. So we started talking and say, let's get out of here. The gasoline was still coming off of the end of the wings, which was really dangerous. And we made it. We took off and we flew. We were going over England and our navigator was lost. He said, I don't know where we're at. So they said, I think we might be over Germany. I said, what? So finally I said, well, why don't you drop down through the clouds and see if we could something. And I spotted some airplanes, British airplanes. I said, there's British airplanes down there. How do you know, you darn kid? How do you know they're English airplanes? Well, let's go down there and look. And sure as heck, there were English airplanes, and we were able to land. We landed in Scotland. Yeah, we landed in Stormaway, Scotland. But those are experiences that some of us kids, went through, let alone them targets that we got. Some of them targets were bad. I mean, we had to go through clouds of anti-aircraft, what they call flak. We had to go through them clouds, and we could hear. I mean, it was like you being in a shed, a tin shed, and somebody was dumping gravel on you. The amount of metal that was coming from those big anti-aircraft guns, the missiles, the bullets or whatever. But it was tough. The B-17 assignments were tough. It's almost like we had to consider a one-way trip. And
was that scary for you?
Yes. Yeah, some of us kids, we messed up our Fruit of the Looms a couple of times. Yeah, it was scary enough. Yeah, and we had 40 below zero because our airplane didn't have windows, and it was cold. It was so cold that if we took our nylon gloves, of course we wore nylon gloves, and then we wore the heavy wool gloves, and if we didn't wear our gloves, if our machine gun got stuck, something happened to it, if we didn't have gloves, our skin would stick onto that metal and just stay there. It would take our skin off of our fingers. It was that cold, miserable cold.
So how did you adapt to the weather, to the change in
Well,
climate?
you
were not used to that.
You don't adapt to the heat, and you don't adapt to the cold, especially when there's no way of heating it, it's only so far. And at that time, they didn't have the fancy gear they have today. Of course, today, airplanes have windows. They're pressurized, and all you do is just set the little thermostat up there, and you're comfortable. In them days, you didn't. It was cold all the time. And then when you got on the ground, of course, England being a nice little place where it's always raining or whatever, But it was a hard assignment, that bombing that Germany. And I say, and I'll say it again, that if it hadn't been for the Air Force bombing Germany for 2 years, we'd have never been able to land in France. Never. And that was a B-25, the B-26s, it was the fighter planes. And if the German Luftwaffe had an opportunity, all they needed is 5 minutes. And there was a lot of times when the fighters could not help us. We were flying at less than 200 miles an hour. The Luftwaffe and our fighters they could fly 500 miles an hour, so they had an advantage on us. And they finally put drop tanks on the P-51, the fighter planes, our fighter planes. They put drop tanks, which they would use to get over there, and then they dropped the tanks because they had to go in combat with the German airplanes. And we could see them out there fighting like crazy, you know. And if they got into a pinch where something happened to the airplanes, our pilots would the fighter pilot would bring their airplanes into like this, not like pointing like this, no way. They come, hey, we're okay, we're not going to point at you. And they'd hide under our wings. And then, after a while, you know, a few minutes, couple, 3 minutes, whatever, then there'd be a couple of fighter planes come in and pick up that one that was having trouble so they could protect him on the way back to England. So it was a kind of a risky situation, the whole thing, you know. It wasn't fun.
What were your responsibilities, your duties?
My duties, I was in charge of all the guns and the turrets. And having some experience with the Southwest Airways here in Phoenix, I was one of the better mechanics even, engine mechanic. And so my duties was to make sure that the guns were in good shape, that the turrets were in good shape, and I also had to be used as a bombardier because I knew the equipment. So I'd drop the bombs too. So,
Did your basic training, did that prepare you for all of this that you lived over there?
No, basic training to me was just a hindrance because basic training was just trying to get you, trained to be an obedient soldier, I guess. Basic training didn't have nothing to do with your occupation that you were going to take. This was just marching and exercising and kind of, I would say, like building you up for military duty. Yeah. But
so then, would you say that everything you experienced over there was like on-the-job training, like until you did it?
well, we went to school. They either had the armament school, they had the say aircraft school, engine and aircraft, and they were in a hurry to train. They didn't have the time. They probably just teach you where to put the gasoline or put the oil in the airplane. That's about all they had. I learned everything I knew in Phoenix with the Southwest Airways. Yeah, that's where I learned my job. And the way I got that job was because I went into interview because in Globe I was a kind of a bum out at the airport. And you heard probably the term, the airport bum. I was out there all the time, you know, helping them and learning things. And I went to school in Globe at night and on Saturdays to learn how to be a mechanic. And that's why I said that. I told him, I says, if you don't assign me to aircraft maintenance, I said, you better put them on because I'm gone. I swear I'll leave.
How did your family feel about you enlisting?
Well, my mom and my brother had already gone in the Navy. I should have brought my brother. He was in the Navy. He's World War II also.
Oh, okay.
And so was the other brother, but he died.
In the war?
He was a Union president in Phoenix. He had 10,000 Union members. He was one of Cesar Chavez's right-hand men.
Wow.
In fact, Cesar Chavez used to have a room with my brother at my brother's home, and because I've got 2 pictures of Cesar Chavez at home, and I've got his fruit mix, what do you call them? Juicer, and a TV that I picked up out of Cesar Chavez's room with my brother. My brother was tough guy.
What was your brother's name?
My brother? What was his what?
Name.
Bill, William.
Bill.
William Soltero.
Soltero.
Uh-huh. And
And he was also in the military?
yeah, he was in World War II.
And did he lose his life in the over there?
He died, no.
No.
No, he died here in Phoenix.
Oh, okay.
Cancer.
Okay.
And he did a lot for the Hispanics in Phoenix. Yeah, we still stop at the little place that they call, what's the name of that little village? Guadalupe, by Phoenix. Because he used to stop there. And of course, the owners worked or were union members with him. And we just stopped there the other day. Friday we went to Prescott. It's about 220 miles from here. We went to a Democratic meeting. I've been involved with the Democratic Party. Like I said, I was chairman of the Pima County Democratic Party, president of the Democrats of Greater Tucson, and my brother campaign manager for my brother who was a senator in Phoenix. But I've been pretty active in all that, her and I. And we do what we can for the Hispanic people. We're not the kind that cuss our brothers that come across the border. No way. I've been watching this Border Patrol thing. It's not the Border Patrol's fault at all. It's those junkies in Washington, D.C. that don't know what to do except put money in their pockets and fight amongst each other. The Republicans and Democrats fight each other for what? Hey, for the survival of the country. It's not going to survive if they keep it up. It's not going to survive. I've seen this country down in a hole before when we had to go clean yards where we had to sell newspapers, anything we could do, sell oranges, sell cantaloupes, do whatever to pick up a couple of nickels, you know. The hamburgers were that big for a nickel, and a Coke was a nickel, and the movies were 10 cents. Now they're $8, $10. Shame on them. I don't want to cuss. Can you imagine from 10 cents? I hope it doesn't get that way again. I don't think so. But you could take your girlfriend and eat a hamburger with her. Yeah, that would be 20 cents. And then you could take her to the movie, that'd be another 20. Okay, so I'd pay 40 cents. I could take my girlfriend, have a hamburger, a Coke, and the movies for 40 cents for both of us. And but is this going in the air or you're taping this, right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, okay. I was going to say something else, but I won't. Everything was real hard, terribly hard.
So you had to help your family growing up? Like you had to work to
I
bring
had
in
to
money?
work or they wouldn't eat. And when I was just a little boy, they gave me a job as a janitor in school. And I worked as a janitor and I had 4 homes and they were lawyers that my dad knew, and my dad told him to give us a job. When he left, give us a job, and my big brother and I, we took care of washed their cars, took care of their yards, cut the grass, watered the yard, whatever, needed to be done. And so we were able to make it. I think we ate enough where it didn't stun our growth. My brothers and I are 6 foot tall.
So then were all your brothers also working?
My big brother and I were working.
Oh, okay.
My sister was in between us. She was a little frail little thing. She couldn't pick up a plate to help my mother wash dishes. I had to wash dishes. I painted the inside the house. I took care of my two dogs. But I raised chickens, I raised pigeons, I raised turkeys, I raised ducks on the hillside. And that gave us a little more money because I had at least probably 200 pair of pigeons, and I used to sell them to the Chinese downtown for $0.25 a pair. But there was nothing, I knew where the food was. And I won't go into detail because I think if I'd have been caught, they'd have probably put me in jail. I won't go into details about how I used to get my food, or some of the food.
So times were hard for your family then growing up.
They're growing up. My big brother retired.
No, I mean back when you were a child, your family was not financially stable. There were economic problems.
Oh my God, yes. And I imagine if my brother and I hadn't really gone out there and start working, looking for whatever we could do, we would do gardens, we would do, like I say, sell papers, everything we could. And then they gave us a job as janitors at an early age. I think I was in the, well, I was already doing janitor work when I was in junior high. Yeah.
At another school or your school?
Huh?
At a school, you said?
Yeah.
Your school or another school?
No, our school.
Okay.
Uh-huh. Yeah, so, times were really hard. I hope we don't go into that situation again, but I don't think we will. It's, I think things changed, the way of living in this country. The boomers, for instance, they can't quit working because they had put themselves in a position where they owed so much money that they couldn't quit working. And then the population has grown to the extent where we couldn't do our own work, not even build homes without the help of our neighbors, which we treat so bad. We're supposed to be human beings. We're supposed to show by example. We're supposed to show the rest of the world, and we're not doing it right now with this situation that we have between Mexico and us. Not only Mexico and us, there's people in here, illegals from China, from everywhere in the world. There's illegals here, but who do we pick on mostly? Hispanics from Mexico. It seems like that's all we know, and the politics of the whole thing makes me so angry that they have to include that as number one for their politics so they can get elected. And the more they talk against the Hispanics, the better they feel, these rotten politicians. And in most cases, or in a lot of cases, they treat them poor Mexicans like dogs. And I mean, we've seen that where they take and break up families and everything. We've seen that. I'm not telling you something you don't know. Mm-hmm. And this just makes me so angry I can't stand it. It's the situation, and that's what happened. Like I said, when Hoover, the Republican, gave Roosevelt the presidency, Roosevelt put everybody to work. Mm-hmm. The CCC camp, the WPA, PWA, and they put these young people to work. Now, the way Obama is trying to do it, he's just throwing money out there, because when Obama took the country over, well, it was broke. It was broke. And I like to tell these Republican people that don't seem to understand the whole thing, he didn't create this problem here in this country. It was already broken. And I say, okay, if the Republicans did so good, I tell them, I said, name me one thing that wasn't broken when Obama took over. I said, I'll give you half an hour. They can't come up with something that wasn't broken, you know. And this is a shame that these bankers and all these so-called, I won't use the word again because there is some good Christians, so-called Christians, you know, they went in there and stole all the money. The bankers, you still taping me? Oh my goodness. Hey, I could say a lot of things, but today's young people seem to not to have respect for anybody. They seem to be, well, they didn't get any motherly love because it takes both people to make a living like they want to live. They want to have too much. They want to have so much that even the mother has to go out there and help. Not this one. I wouldn't let her out the door. I locked the door on her and I wouldn't let her out. But she took care of the family. But we planned our life. And today's families, no, they're not planning their lives. They're both, father and mother go out to work and the kids are out loose. And she says, oh my goodness. One girl asked the other one, is anybody home? No. Oh, let's go to your house. We'll take our boyfriends with us. You know, this type of situation is going on. And we look at the way these kids are growing today. I says, oh man, and they're going to be the leaders. I don't know. We were never like that, I don't think. We took responsibility. At least we did, because we were not only the underdogs being Hispanic, you know, everybody was poor, and we all worked hard, whether it was in school or otherwise. We were taught some manners, and today, nothing like that. Nothing. It's this United States, or the world, I would say. And you know what? They say China's stronger than we are. It's not going to be the boys and girls in Washington that are going to take care of this situation. It's going to be the Chinese people that want more money for their labor. And it's going to cost too much to ship that stuff all the way to the United States. So it's going to go up in price, and then we're going to start producing our own stuff again like we were before, you know. But it's horrible. And I'm watching the prices. I watch everything. I watch how people dress. I watch how people act. I watch how people buy. I go in the grocery stores and see how they fill their baskets up. And it goes with the way they dress. The people that dress the best fill up their baskets. The poor people don't. They only pick 3 or 4 things, and out the door they go. There's so much that I study all these things, and I'm pretty vocal about things, you know, because I got the experience. I went through it. 86 years. I raised my brothers and sisters, and then I married this lady here. We've been married 63 years. We only had 3 kids, but she wanted them 10 years apart so they could help her raise. The oldest one helped her raise the other 2, and then the second one helped raise the third one. and we couldn't carry bags for everybody. If we'd have had 6 or 7 or 10 like my mother had, where we wouldn't be able to carry the bags. But it's been interesting. My life, hey, I don't regret it. I love my sisters and brothers, and I would do it again. What I went through, I would do it again. Today, 16 years old, they walk out of their home and under the bridge or wherever they go, I don't know.
Do you think it was because you were a hard worker since you were young? That's what shaped you? Do you think is that now, like you said, you started working since you were 12 years old, having that big responsibility?
I started selling paper when I was 8 years old.
8 years old.
8 years old. My dad left. I was already 11, I think, but
That's when he left to Mexico?
he headed for California, and then there were no jobs anywhere. He went to work for the racetrack in Tijuana, the Hipódromo, which was a horse racetrack. And there was a guy that hired him. His name was D'Alessio, and he worked for the owner. And the owner got in trouble, went to jail, and he stayed on it to help run the horse racing business there. But he tried to get my mother to go. She says, "How am I going to go to Mexico if we're having a hard time here? What are we going to do in Mexico?" Can you imagine? And of course, we knew the language. We knew both. I was 3 years old. I knew Spanish just like I did English, you know. And my dad used to read. My dad was a general in the Mexican army before he come over here. And I didn't know it. He didn't say anything about it. But, you know, one day this guy at the bar, in a bar, he says, "Hey, you want to know something about your dad?" "Yeah." Of course, my dad was already gone. He said, "Look at this picture." He was sitting there in la mesa directiva, some kind of treaty with the United States. He said, "See, your dad was a big shot in Mexico. He's a military type." I said, "Well, maybe that's why I love the military. I had it in my genes." But I love the military.
So you never knew that growing up that your father had been in the military?
Well, this guy told me after my dad was gone. Yeah, because selling papers, I used to go in them bars and all over the place. And so I think I was already growing up when I was 12 years old. I knew when I was 14 years old, I had my own car. And the lady there, what was she called? Pima Terry Goddard. Pima County, what's his job? Terry Goddard? Pima County
County attorney?
attorney. She was the Pima County attorney because Globe was a seat for Gila County, my county, Gila County. And she says, "I understand you have a little truck." I said, "Yes, ma'am." "Well, you know, you're driving without a license." "Yes, ma'am." "Okay, I'm going to give you a license. But let me tell you, if I ever catch you speeding or doing something out of the, you know, out of the law, you're going to pay for it. And I want you to listen." And she grabbed me by the hair, says, Did you hear me?" I said, "Yes." "Yes, ma'am." I was scared to death of that woman. And I obeyed everything. And right after that, I paid $15 for my truck. I went and took it back. I said, "I'd like to have that little car with a rumble seat, a 1929 Ford." I said, "Can I trade my truck in?" "Oh yeah, I'll give you $15 for your truck again, but I want $25 for that little car." I bought it for $25 and it had new tires. And that's the one that I took to Phoenix, that these little Russian kids and Japanese kids, well, we were all kids, they used to fill it up with rabbits, chickens, because, you know, these guys were farmers. They had an easy life. They raised their own crops and everything. And they used to load my little car up. I'd leave there at Phoenix at 10 o'clock at night, because I worked the second shift. and I drive all the way to Globe, 100 miles through the mountains, and my little old Model A would just chug, chug, chug up the mountains. When I got home, everybody was waiting for me at 1 o'clock in the morning to see what I was bringing home. Chickens, rabbits, everything. And vegetables, oranges. Oh, Phoenix used to raise the best oranges, grapefruit. Now they built houses and junkyards, I guess. But I'll never forget that day when that little Japanese boy, about my age, he had a big bouquet of flowers. Says, "Here, take it to your mom." That's people.
Yeah.
Yeah. And now I see how the whole country, my God, here we are in the same position as Hoover. When this guy Bush left, we're in bad shape, and they're blaming that poor Obama.
For what?
Yeah, they're
When
blaming
in
him for
previous
everything.
administration.
Huh?
For a previous administration.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. He did all this thing wrong. He was the one, not Bush. Obama did it. That's what they say. Because they don't have enough brains in their head. You know? It's politics, though. Politics are crooked.
I'm gonna